Okay, well, it's 7:01, so I think we'll make a start. We may well be joined by some other people as we carry on, but no worries. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mike Down. I'm the Carer Practice Manager at Life Without Barriers. What we're going to do this evening is spend some time sharing with you some information about foster care and the process of how to become a foster carer, and a little bit about Life Without Barriers as an organisation. But before we do that, I'll introduce you to Deb and Karina, who perhaps say a few words about themselves. So Deb Beals, if you're able to just quickly say who you are and what you do and how you're involved with Life Without Barriers, that'd be great.
Hi, everybody. So, yes, I'm Deb Beals, and I've been a foster carer with Life Without Barriers since 2014. And my partner Adam and I provide respite care for long-term placements. We work with some Narrandjeri sisters, and we also do some other respite. I'm a foster care ambassador now and have been for a couple of years. And I have just recently become the Mockingbird Hub coordinator with my partner in the Northeast. And the Mockingbird Hub constellation is creating a network of carers and their young people, so that the young people, I guess it wraps another level of support around the young people and provides a peer network for the foster carers. So Adam and I are quite busy in a number of things, and I think it's really great that you've made the time to attend this webinar today. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. I'm sure I'll be calling on you from time to time as we progress this evening. Karina, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
I have to apologise because it's just started pouring with rain and I'm sitting in my shed that has a tin roof. So please let me know if you can't hear me, and I'll run inside and go and get some headphones. Hopefully it's okay. So I'm the Carer Engagement Officer for Life Without Barriers. So I am basically the frontline person who gets all the inquiries that come through our national office. They come through to me. So any of you who decide that you'd like to come through and join our program, then you will meet me probably in the first instance, and I'll come out and visit you guys and talk to you a little bit more about what the foster care assessment process looks like. I am in charge of booking people into training and helping you with your paperwork and your screening checks. So I'm really that first person that kind of supports you and helps you out along the way through the early, what I call pre-assessment process. So my job is to make you feel more comfortable, give you lots more information and help you to hopefully become approved foster carer. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join us tonight.
Brilliant. Thanks, Karina. I noticed that we've been joined by a few more people since we were introducing ourselves, so welcome to those new guys. Great that you've been able to join us this evening. Just to let you know that you can see us and hear us, but we can't see you or hear you. So please make use of the chat box, and myself, Deb or Karina will do our best to answer your questions as we go along. If you're able to just quickly drop something in the text box just to let us know where you're joining us from this evening, that's just really helpful to us and lets us know how far we've been able to reach people. So that'd be really great if you could do that. Thank you. We'll just start with, that's great, Hayley. Nice to have you joining us from there this evening. We're just going to start with an acknowledgement of country. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present, as well as to emerging leaders. I extend my appreciation to their cultural heritage, beliefs and spiritual connection with this land. I acknowledge my gratitude that we share this land today, my sorrow for some of the costs of that sharing, and my hope and belief that we can move to a place of equity, justice and partnership together. Okay, so today we're going to explore the answers to some of the questions we regularly hear from people who are keen to find out about fostering and to help them make decisions around whether fostering is the right thing for them or not. So let me just get my screens looking how they should do. So through this evening, we'll talk about life without barriers. We'll talk about foster care. We'll talk about children in care, and we'll be talking about becoming a carer, and then we'll have a look at some common questions. Obviously, if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box, and we'll try and pick some of those up as we go along as well. There'll also be plenty of time at the end as well where we can revisit anything we might have missed. Okay, so Life Without Barriers is a leading national social purpose organisation established close to 3 decades ago by a determined group of community members with a clear vision to partner with people to improve their lives for the better. They're a national organisation. They're one of the biggest providers nationally. They've got a headquarters in Newcastle in New South Wales. As you can see, they support young people in various situations, including in foster care. They also support people with disabilities, people involved in NDIS programs. They support refugees and asylum seekers. They support people in through home and community care. They also work a lot with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and in partnership with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations. So very big organisation, and yeah, we're really proud of the work that they do and that we're part of with LWB. So the values of the organisation, which hopefully you guys, if you came to become foster carers with us, hopefully these would be values that you would be able to get on board with and think, yeah, I can buy into that. So we like to build relationships. So we feel that all good practices come from the good relationships that we build with foster carers. We like to be imaginative in our approaches. So we don't just give up at the first hurdles. We think, okay, how can we overcome this? What do we need to do in order to create the best outcomes for young people? We like to be respectful in everything that we do. And I think that goes hand in hand with the ideas around building relationships. We like to be responsive. So it's about being swift in our actions. And we like to be courageous. So that's about, you know, giving people who don't have a voice in our society, or lending our power to them, basically, to ensure that their needs are met. So hopefully they're values that, you know, you guys can get on board with as well. Okay, so what is foster care? Foster care is a service provided to children and young people who cannot safely live at home with their families, either in the short term or sometimes until they're 18. The Child Protection Department in South Australia have the responsibility of identifying children and young people at risk, and together with the family court system, make decisions about where's the best place for them to live in the short to long term. So you might hear, when we have conversations around foster care, you might hear the terms out of home care or family-based care or family care, but they're all kind of talking about the same sort of thing, really. So it's about so what we're looking for in foster care is about securing children's welfare, safety, and placing them in a position where their needs are going to be routinely met and where they can thrive and meet their full potential. That's what we're looking to achieve, where that can't be achieved at home for whatever reason. With nearly 50,000 children unable to live safely at home in Australia, we're always looking for foster carers. So I'm really glad that you joined us this evening to find out a bit more about it. Okay, why do children come into care? Common reasons for children needing foster care. There's many reasons why children come into care. While each child has a unique set of needs and experiences, almost all come from complex family and social situations where they may have suffered neglect, trauma, or abuse. So, yeah, they could have been subject to abuse, physical, sexual, or emotional, or neglect. Parental mental health conditions may have been a factor. Parental death could have been a factor. Significant needs for the child where the parents aren't able to meet those needs. Yeah, so there's some of the reasons why it's sometimes required for children to be looked after outside of the family home. Okay, children in care are aged between 0 and 17. Having said that, we do have quite a lot of situations where children stay in care beyond stay with their carers beyond the age of 18, which is great. Children in care should stay connected to their culture and identity. So as a foster carer, you would have a role to play in that, to support young people to maintain family contact where that's been deemed appropriate by the courts or the Department for Child Protection, and also to support them in maintaining their culture and identity. So a really important role for foster carers, because looked after children have families who remain important to them. It's also worth noting that looked after children have all suffered trauma of some sort to a lesser or greater degree. So we need to be really mindful of that in everything that we do in terms of how we look after children. We'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward, I think. How are we doing, Karina? Have we had any questions that we need to answer? No? All right.
No, we've got no questions. I was going to quickly add, just in terms of responding to children with trauma. Obviously, all the children that come into the foster care system will have some level of complex trauma, some greater than others, depending on their circumstances. But we don't expect people who want to be foster carers to know everything at the very first point. You know, we do provide training and lots and lots of support. So, you know, I hope people don't panic and think, you know, oh, I'm not really sure how to respond to challenging behaviours, quite, you know, children with really high needs. It's something that we can work with you. We can give you lots of training and support around learning how to respond appropriately to that stuff. So I don't want people to get scared off thinking that they don't know enough about trauma, because we can teach you and we can support you through the process.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Karina. And I think Deb can probably speak to the fact that you know, life as a foster carer, it's a continuous journey, isn't it? In terms of learning, there's constant, there's regular training. It's kind of an expectation, isn't it, as a foster carer to routinely access training. Okay, different types of foster care. Okay, so we've got respite care, which is about gives children an opportunity to mix in a different social network with their primary carer. Short break, regular or occasional time spent with carers who are not the child's primary carer. So really important role. Respite carers provide really valued support to carers, in-house carers. Add a lot of placement stability as well, I would say. I think having respite is really, really important to a lot of carers. So it's a really valuable service. Emergency or crisis care. So that's about being available to look after a child at very short notice, possibly without knowing too much about the young person or their needs. So yeah, very important side of fostering. Short to medium term care. So that's about providing a foster care placement for a young person, perhaps where the long-term plans haven't quite been agreed yet and there's still some work to be done, and we're not sure, the courts haven't made a final decision about what the long-term plans are for that young person. Kinship foster care is about living with a relative or a close family friend. And long-term foster care is where the courts have made decisions around the long-term plans for a young person, and those plans do not include the possibility of reunification to parents, and therefore they're looking at long-term fostering as the preferred route for that young person. So yeah, a few different kinds of fostering that we can talk to you about as you go through the process. I think we've got something in that Q&A box, Karina. What's that? Have you got that access to that Q&A box?
Is there an eligibility criteria for long-term carers? I think the short answer is probably no, but there's certainly, depending on the needs of the child, it is sort of a very complex answer. Depends on the needs of the child, depends on the age of the child, it depends on your circumstances. There's no, apart from the very, very basic criteria, which Mike will talk through later in the presentation, there's nothing specific to long-term care, no.
No, if that was something you wanted to explore, we could explore that with you and make that part of your assessment. So you will also hear sometimes foster care has been described as general or specialist. I'm not a big fan of those terms, if I'm honest with you, but that's the terms that they're often described as. But basically, specialist carers are those that have, look after children with higher end needs, if you like, so perhaps disabilities or some learning difficulties or some behavioural difficulties. So that's what those carers do, and then the general foster carers look after children who don't necessarily have those more complex needs. So again, we can have a look at that within the assessment process. There's a different sort of levels of evidence that we need to provide to the department in those assessment processes. But there's a need for all kinds of foster carers, is what I would say in relation to that. So specialist carers need to be more flexible and readily available, receive higher reimbursements, they're provided with more regular and intensive support and coaching, they receive additional training, have access to Life Without Barriers therapeutic consultation services. So you do get an increased level of support if you are a specialist carer as well. So we do try, we acknowledge that you are looking after children with more complex needs. So we'll certainly support you with that. And we're one of the few agencies in South Australia that can provide that additional support to carers who want to become specialist carers. So what is our approach to foster care? So our approach to foster care, we use what's called the CARE model, which was developed at Cornell University in America. This kind of informs and underpins our approach. So as you go through the assessment process and post-approval as well, you'll hear a lot about the care principles. You'll hear a lot about this, and you'll receive training on this as well post-approval, and you'll hear about it within the assessment process. So it's about being relationship based, it's about building trust, meaningful relationships to help foster emotional and social confidence. So that's kind of the bedrock of how we go about working with young people. We're developmentally focused, so we map strategies for change where the child is at developmentally, to challenge but not to overwhelm. We're trauma informed, considering the impact that trauma has on a child's development and modifying our expectations and interactions accordingly. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, and sort of perhaps a difference between those of us that have had experience of bringing up our own children to what the experience might be like of bringing up a foster child, is that we need to consider the impact that the experiences that the foster child have been through prior to coming into our care, and how that's impacted on their development. So then we need to change our ways of doing things accordingly. So we need to be looking through a trauma lens at the way that we look after children. So some of the things that you have done with your own children, if you're fortunate enough to have been in that position, may not work with a foster child, or may not be appropriate with a foster child. So there'll be a certain amount of starting from scratch. We also think that family involvement is really important. It helps a young person to maintain their identity and links with their culture and their community. We like to be competency centred, helping children to develop skills and knowledge and attitudes they need to negotiate everyday life. So it's about recognising where a child is in their own, where they're up to and what they can manage. And we like to be ecologically orientated, so providing a caring and supportive environment with helpful models to show children how to care for themselves and others. So you'll learn, I just wanted to sort of briefly tell you about the care principles, but you'll learn a lot more about that as you go through the assessment process.
I don't want people to get scared off by it being such a theoretical based thing. And I think it's not something that, again, we don't expect people to be really kind of focused on it. But when we do your assessment, we think about, when we say, ecologically orientated, we think about, well, how's people worked within the environment that they've got? So what kind of community do you have around you, and what have you accessed in the community previously? So, it doesn't mean it has to be skills that you have now pertaining to foster care. It can be, skills and other things that you've done in your life that make you a great carer. So it all sounds very theoretical based, and you will learn a lot more about it. But in terms of coming through the foster care assessment process, we look at skills and attributes that you bring from your life that would make you great foster carers, and that's the framework that we look upon.
Yeah, thanks, Karina. Put it a lot better than I did. What is the most important role of a foster carer? Now, what I'd like to do at this stage is play you these 3 videos, but my experience tells me that they're not going to work. So what we'll do is we'll send you the link to these videos with the information that we'll send you after the presentation, so you can have a look at these in your own time. I apologise that they don't work, but it's a bit of a technical issue. But there's a video there about Stacey, who will talk to you about her time as being a foster child and how she's gone through that process and what she's looking to do in her adult life. There's also a video there about Chris and Sophie and how they came to the decision of wanting to become foster carers and what that looked like for them. And also a video there about Gwen, who started off as providing some respite care for her friend who was a foster carer, and before she knew it, she was looking after teenage children and really enjoyed it. And so yeah, some really good videos there. Sorry that they're not going to work this evening, but we will send you the links to those, so please have a look at those in your own time. So what do we look for in carers? Children in care have usually had some tough experiences in their lives that they need help to understand and move through. Sometimes these experiences mean that children haven't learned to understand and express how they feel, and the only way to let it out is through how they behave. Kids in care need special people to be able to be a safe space for them to do that. So you need to have plenty of time to spend with children. You need to want to help children return safely home to their families if that's the plan for them to do so. You need to believe in children. All children do well if they get the right help, care and support. Want to share my home and resources with children who need help. I like trying to understand why children do things. I can help a child manage tough feelings or missing their family. If you believe it's important that children feel included in your family when they're in foster care. Deb, I'm probably going to put you on the spot a little bit. I haven't spoke to Deb beforehand about this, but I know that Deb's been through this recently. I was just wondering if you could perhaps share a little bit about what you've been through recently in terms of having you had a young person in your care recently who has returned to live with mom. I just wondered if you could share a little bit about how that was for you and some of the thoughts and feelings around that.
Certainly. So in July last year, we accepted an emergency placement of a 7-year-old girl. And from the very first week, she was having weekly contact with Dad. And the intention of the department was to explore family reunification. So it was quite broad. She came to stay with us and stayed with us for almost 10 months. So it became a short-term placement, if you like. And partway through the placement, as part of a family reunification, she started having contact with mum on Zoom as well. So this little delightful 7-year-old celebrated her 8th birthday with us. And there are lots of different ways Life Without Barriers provides support to foster carers, talking through issues, reflecting on approaches. But one of the great things that happened while this little girl was with us was there was Life Without Barriers hosted a visit to the Monarto Zoo. And so what happened for us was this little girl got to meet a bunch of kids who were also in foster care, not that she knew that, but it gave her a little network so that when she turned 8, which was in the November, we did a visit to AFL Max and invited the kids she'd met at Monarto, because all she wanted to do was go to a big playground. And so there was lots of opportunity with this little girl to encourage her to speak up about what she wanted to do, and lots of opportunity to support her in having contact with both mum and dad, because our job, as we talked to her about as foster carers, was to keep her safe while her caseworker worked out where she was going to be in the longer term. Worked really well, was lots of work for us in terms of getting our head around a 7 and 8-year-old's needs, because our youngest granddaughter is 11, and kids do different things at 7 and 8 and have different amounts of energy. But it was awesome when she came to my partner and I and said, you know, I love my dad and I miss my dad, but I actually want to live with my mum and my sister. And so we set up a meeting with DCP for her to talk to her case manager about that. And then we managed that process, putting lots of love and encouragement into the little girl, but also doing things like being quite, I guess, innovative. We looked around, and some of you may know the ABC program Bluey. Well, this little girl needed practice with her reading, and there are Bluey books. One says, My Dad's Awesome, and one's about My Mum's the Best. So we were always very measured in the information we gave her, because it wasn't about her feeling guilty about going to live with mum. And so the happiest thing we did before she left was took her and her dad to Monarto. So they all had a similar fun experience. But I just want to share, as Mike was saying before and Katrina alluded to, there's lots of support around. It's about asking the question, it's about contacting and connecting with other foster carers, which is why Life Without Barriers has created the foster care ambassador positions. But it's really about starting with these values. So I guess I'll stop there unless there are any questions.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Deb. That was great. It's really nice to hear such a positive outcome for that young person, and that's great that you were able to support her with that reunification back to her mum. That's been fantastic. Okay, so who can be a carer? Well, chances are you could. It's likely that you can. Carers can be partnered or single, with or without children from all backgrounds and all cultures. Your ability to care for and nurture a child is what really matters. So you do need to be over 25 and have some relevant life experience. You need to be well and healthy, or well and healthy enough to look after a young person at least. Have a regular source of income. You can be from any culture, faith, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or gender identity expression. Not a problem. Single or in a relationship is fine. You need to be willing to undergo background checks. And in terms of your home and family, you can be with or without children. You can rent or own your own place, but you do need to have a spare room. And everyone in the household needs to be active and willing in terms of wanting to be involved in fostering. So how to become a foster carer? Well, I'm going to hand over to Karina now, who's going to talk you through this, because Karina does this every single day of the week and knows far more about this stuff than me. So Karina, over to you. If you could run us through these, this would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess after tonight, if you guys take this, take this information and think, yep, this is great, this is what I want to do, I want to become a foster carer, so you can chat directly with us. You can either go to our website or contact our National Inquiry Office, and they'll take your phone interview. They'll filter through and give you a bit of information. They'll get as much information from you as possible, and then they'll send it through to me, and then you'll get a phone call from me. And so then I'll talk you through what it is that I do in terms of my role. So I usually will get in contact with you as soon as your referrals reached our local office in Adelaide, and then organise a time to come out and see you. Most of the time, you'll get a face-to-face home visit. So I like to come out and see people. I like to get to know people and see where they live. And if you've got children, I always like to see and make sure that, kids are happy that things are happening and that they're on board with fostering. I think it's hard because sometimes people don't like having those conversations with their children up front about fostering, because it's still very early stages. But it's really important that anybody who lives in the home is on board and supportive of fostering. So it's something just to bear in mind. So yeah, at the home visit, I generally go through all of the process of becoming a foster carer, which is quite detailed. So that includes, a series of paperwork that we fill out, screening checks. So there's a few different kinds of screening checks that we ask you to do, working with children's check, national police check, and a child protection history check. So at that home visit, I usually go through what those checks are and how we go about them. We also talk about health screening checks. So we ask you to do a couple of health checks as well. And I talk you through the training. So there's different mandatory training required to become an approved carer. We pay for it all, and I can book you into all of your training. So I'm sort of the one who coordinates all of those sorts of bits and pieces, and I talk you through the process, and you can call me and I'll hold your hand basically through that process. So once you've done your paperwork and your training and your screening checks, I then talk to Mike about allocating you an assessor. So it's at that point that I then hand you over to an assessor who will then do your formal assessment, which is usually a series of interviews. Usually it's face-to-face. In this post-COVID world, sometimes we are having to get a bit creative. But yeah, we get someone to come out and meet with you, usually fortnightly, sometimes more, sometimes less. But we do have a mandatory sort of time frame that once that first assessment interview commences, we need to have your report into the department within 5 months. So we know the process takes a long time, and we do the best we can, but yeah, the clock starts ticking once we do that first initial interview with you. So yeah, be prepared if you've got things happening or it's a busy time and maybe now's just not the right time. I say to people every day, hey, if now's not the right time or something crops up, when you're in my space, great, we can put you on hold for however long, till things settle down a little bit. But once we start that first assessment visit, yeah, that gets a little bit tricky. So I always make sure before I hand over to an assessor that everyone's in the right space and the right time, and that they're available to attend these interviews. So once the interviews are completed by the assessor, then you will have the choice to review your report that the assessor will put together, and then that gets sent off to the Department for Child Protection, and then they will review it and process your approval. Have I left anything out, Mike?
All sounded really good. Thanks, Karina. Cool. Perfect. So let's have a little look at some frequently asked questions. I'm single, can I foster? Of course, about 50% of our foster carers are single, so not an issue. Foster families come in all shapes and sizes, as does any other family. So yeah, why not? We are a same-sex couple. Can we foster? Of course, absolutely no problem. We have lots of same-sex couples who are fostering with LWB. Can I foster even though I don't have my own children? Yes. We know that having experience interacting with and caring for children is useful when new to fostering, but that can be gained in many ways other than parenting, even if you've never cared for children. Having personal attributes that would make you a good carer is what we're looking for. So we may be able to evidence competencies in other ways. About your home, do you need to have a spare room? In most instances, yeah, that's pretty much a standard requirement. Do you need to own your own home to be a foster carer? No, however, you need to demonstrate that your premises are safe and suitable to foster. You can be renting in a public housing, paying off your home, or own your home outright. Can I have my own children and foster other children? Yeah, your family situation is considered when making decisions about the age and the needs and level of children you may foster. Generally speaking, children placed with caring families will be younger than your own children. Will all my family be involved in the assessment process? Yes, everyone in your household will be part of the assessment process. It's important to make sure everyone knows what fostering is and is on board with the decision to apply. Okay, how are children matched to foster carers? Okay, so by getting to know you well, we can ensure that children matched to carers are those that they are able to best support. We take into account their unique needs and parts of their identity that might be good fit with your family to help create a sense of belonging. So I just want to say a little bit more about the matching process. So this is a really, really important process. So what we like to do when we so you've been approved as a foster carer and we're looking to place a child into your care. So what happens is we get referrals from the Department for Child Protection about children who need to be looked after by foster carers, and we have a look at the information in that referral, and then we have a think about carers that have some capacity to look after a child, and we try and look at the needs of the child and whether those carers are well positioned to meet the needs of the child. Okay, it's not an exact science, but what we want to do is make the give the foster placement every success to be a successful placement rather than setting off on a bad foot from the start. So sometimes the information that we get is limited, but we'll do the best we can with the information we've got. Karina, something else you want to say on that?
Oh, I just wanted to add, as a former assessor, your assessor will get to know you really, really well. So they're in a really, really good position to be able to look at our referral list and figure out pretty quickly what's going to be a reasonably good fit and what's not going to be a great fit. So they're in an absolutely great position to be able to help you out with that. So you'll get to know them really well. They'll get to know you really, really well. And we do take into account everything throughout, from the very, very start of the assessment right to the end, to make sure that we are making the best fit possible. Yeah.
And we'll also obviously consider what support we might be able to put in place to help you to look after the young person, whether we need to put in some additional support in certain areas or provide some additional training. We can also look at all of that. Can I choose the age and gender of the child? Let's have a look, shall we? Yeah, so obviously in the course of your assessment, we'll consider with you, we'll have a talk about what would be the best fit for you and your family in terms of age of child and gender, and we can certainly make that part of the recommendations and preferences at the end. Do children in care have ongoing relationships with their family? In most cases, yes. We know that maintaining connection with family in whatever way possible is part of ensuring good long-term outcomes for children in care. Our care team will help you find the best ways to support family relationships and ensure that it is safe for all. What happens if the placement isn't working out? Stability is key for children in order to do well and thrive. It is not in the child's best interest to be moved continuously, so we need resilient carers who are able to work with our care team to push through the harder days. If ending a placement has to happen, we'll always be there to make sure goodbyes are done well. How long does the assessment process take? I think we've kind of touched on that a little bit earlier. What I would say is that there's kind of two stages really. There's the inquiry process and then there's the assessment stage. So the inquiry process is around where we do the background checks and you complete any training that's required. Now that process can vary in length depending on how proactive you are in completing the paperwork that's required, and also how quick government agencies are in coming back with background check information that we've requested, and also availability of training courses. So that can take maybe 5-6 months, something like that, depending on those factors. There's some variable factors in there, but in terms of the actual assessment process, once we do the first visit, we need to have it submitted to the department 5 months after that first visit. So that's a very defined period of time. And then the assessment goes to the department and then they have to have a look at it and approve it. So again, that can take a week, it could take a couple of months. It kind of depends how busy they are. So there's a few variables involved in that. It's important to remember that fostering is all about timing. If ever you need to take a break from the process and revisit it later, that's okay. And I think Karina mentioned that earlier as well. So we're pretty flexible in our approach. If something changes in your personal circumstances and you just need to step out of this for a while, that's fine. We can pick it up at a later date. About support. What support will I receive as a carer? It can be difficult to comprehend the experiences children bring with them, so it's important that carers feel supported. What sort of support do you get, Deb?
Well, for Adam and I personally, and as I understand it, all carers will be allocated a child and family practitioner who will meet with them regularly, who will also build a relationship with the young person that you're caring for. So we get that kind of support. We get we get to do online training and a range of other kinds of training that are available. I've already mentioned the social events. Some of the things that we've taken young people to include and things we look forward to, the Monarto trip, Reconciliation in the West, which is happening next week. And we often take young people to things like that as a good opportunity for them to learn about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. We get payment, reimbursement for having the young people, and we tend to use all of that on doing lots of fun activities for them, because remember, we're respite carers, so they're coming to us to have some fun while their full-time carers have a chance to, shall I say, recuperate. We've had situations where we've spoken with the psychologists from Life Without Barriers about different techniques to apply with the young people, and most recently the launch of the Northeast Mockingbird Hub constellation. So we're really quite fortunate, having been with Life Without Barriers now since 2014, and the support was good when we started, but it just gets better and better. And that's a really good thing to be able to share with all of you that are thinking about this process. Over the years, we've certainly involved our family quite a bit. For the young girl that we had, it was awesome because my nephews have got children her age. So she basically thought, she was part of a huge network, not only the foster care network, but kids her age that we could ring up and go and, do play dates with and things like that, because we all live near each other in my family, and the kids that were her age. So we had lots of support, and we brought in lots of support. I've got, grandma mates that have got kids. And so we're always talking about how to do fun things with children. And we often touch base when we've got foster children with us in the school holidays, because everyone's always looking for ways to do group things with kids. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Deb. That's brilliant. So as you can see from what Deb was saying there, there's a lot of ways that LWB can support you as foster carers. Something that Deb's mentioned a couple of times is around the Mockingbird model, which is a new way of fostering that Life Without Barriers have been looking at in recent times and around the last 12 months or so. And this is a model that was developed in America, and we're trialing it over here at the moment. It's about creating what they call constellations of fostering households, which kind of work together to look after children. It's a bit like a kind of a takes a village to raise a child kind of, it's kind of based on that kind of theory. And it works really, really well. It's working really well. We've got 2 constellations at the moment. We may end up developing some more in the future. So becoming a foster carer doesn't mean you could necessarily be involved in the Mockingbird constellation. It's not a given. It might not be suitable for you or available to you at this time, but it's certainly something you can have a conversation about with your CFP later down the line. You might be invited to join a constellation in the future, perhaps.
One more thing, Mike, that I also wanted to share, and Adam and I've only just been talking about this today, but it's our understanding that with Life Without Barriers, they have an employee assist program, and we as carers can access that. And that's again, it's another level of support for us as adults when things are happening, and we can, there's a limit to the number of visits we can have, but having myself come from agencies where EAP or employee assist was available, it's a really helpful independent place that you can go for some counselling to assist with managing, not necessarily only with foster care issues, but if you're a foster carer and one of my family members, for example, was going through a divorce, it was a really helpful opportunity to just tease out and separate some issues so that I kept myself well and healthy for the foster caring we were doing.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. That's a really, really important message. Obviously, as foster carers, we have to look after ourselves sometimes and make sure that we're in a good place so that we can look after the young people in our care. So, yeah, another good thing that LWB provides to our carers. So thanks for that, Deb. So, if we're coming towards the end of our presentation this evening, I'd like to thank you all for taking some time out of your busy schedules to spend some time with us and give us the opportunity to share some information about LWB and about how to become a foster carer. If you decide to go no further with this, I'll just really thank you for your time anyway. The fact that you're even taking the time to find out about it speaks volumes about you as people. So thank you for that. If you do decide you want to find out a bit more, then there's several ways of doing that. A good place to start is on our website. A lot more information about LWB and foster care. If you'd like to talk to a foster care specialist, you can contact our national team. I think in the information that we send out after this, I think there will probably be contact details for Karina as well, so you can probably talk to her directly. We'll send some fact sheets. And Karina, did you put your hand up there? Do I imagine it?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say we've got a question when you finish that bit there.
Oh, cool. If you're not ready just yet, that's also fine. We can add you to our mailing list and we can keep in touch with you. We'll, call you every so often just to see how you're doing and keep in touch. That's not a problem either. Or if you want to tell any family or friends about us, that's also great. You feel free to do that. Okay, did you say we had a question, Karina?
Yeah, so someone's asked about what our expectations are, if any, around full-time employment when taking on a foster child. And I think we don't have any sort of hard and fast rules around people working full-time and fostering. I think it's very case by case. And sometimes we do have children with really high and complex needs, and they require, regular therapies and regular appointments or regular family contact. Or they just can't maintain full-time schooling, and so full-time work would be really hard to manage. But again, it's very case by case. It depends on the young person, and it depends on your situation and what your support's like. When I'm going out to assess people, I'm asking them straight away, who have you got wrapped around you? Who are your support people? And it's the people that can't give me anyone that I start to think, that's going to be a bit tricky. I don't know how that's going to work. Because you do need good support when you're going to be fostering. So I hope that answers your question. But I mean, yeah, feel free when you get the emails either tomorrow or the next day. You can feel free to reach out and just ask any of those questions. I'm more than happy to answer any of those.
Brilliant, thank you. So thank you for your time this evening, guys. Has anyone else got any questions?
There is another question, Mike.
Cool.
Someone's asked, someone's over 60, are they too old to be a foster carer?
No, plenty of life left in you at 60, I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that wouldn't be an issue. I think a lot of young people would benefit from your care. So yeah, don't let that be a barrier to exploring this a bit further.
Yeah, I've got another question, Mike, around someone's got a rather large dog, but he's quite friendly. Is that okay?
Oh, I should think so. I mean, as part of the assessment process, we'll obviously, we'll have a look at your pets and, take that into account. It might be that we have to do some pet risk assessments, or we might have a conversation about how we introduce children to pets. Might be something that you do over a period of time, a gradual introduction.
That's
But,
something I do as well, right from the get-go. As I walk into someone's house and I meet them, I put myself in the child's shoes and I think, what would it be like for a little person coming here? So I always make sure I think about that when I walk into someone's house and see how it feels.
Yeah.
And the thing I often hear from young people that I meet is that a dog, a cat, any kind of pet gives them something to connect with in the house. So a big dog, obviously it would depend on, the child's age and height, but and the dog's demeanor, but that connection with being able to roll around the floor with a big dog is something I grew up with. And yeah, I just think that sounds lovely.
Yeah, it can sometimes be quite therapeutic in the right circumstances, can't it?
I've got a couple of questions in the Q&A box, Mike.
Yeah.
Someone's just asked, as a teacher, would there be any rules around some children being at the same school or / conflict of interest? We do have carers that are teachers at the same school as young people that they provide respite for. I'm not sure about long term. Again, very case by case, I think. Mike, did you have anything maybe you wanted?
No, I think that's right. I think we'd have to look at it as a case by case. But yeah, it's not necessarily a reason to, be ruled out at this stage.
Yeah.
In terms of, accessing before and after school care, again, depending on the needs of the child, that's something that is something that a lot of, foster children do access, before and after school care. So it wouldn't necessarily be an issue for the child that you're looking after, but it depends on the needs of the child.
We've got another question. Can we request siblings so they can stay together? Yes, absolutely. If you've got room in your home and you're able to look after siblings, we would love that. Sometimes, unfortunately, siblings can't stay together. for whatever reason the DCP decide that they need to be in separate households. But yeah, absolutely, we'd love it if people were able to keep siblings together. That's so important. Another question, can a foster child go to the same school as my children? Yes, well, yes, it's definitely possible. It depends on where the child's coming from and the geographical location, what's going to be in their best interests. Yeah, absolutely, there's certainly wiggle room in terms of what school they might be able to go to.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a desire from the Department for Children to stay in whatever school they're in, certainly whilst plans are being made and agreed in terms of their long term, but once the long-term plans are agreed, then there's often scope then to think about, you know, moving schools closer to foster carers' homes. Okay.
Actually, can I quickly sneak in? I just noticed something that's missing from our presentation is our fabulous Living Arts program. So we are very, very lucky. We are the only organisation that provide a therapeutic art program. So we have this amazing art therapy program. They put together school holiday programs. I know Deb was talking about the Minato experience that was put together by our Living Arts team. They do all sorts of amazing things, not just one-to-one art therapy. They do lots of school holiday programs, which are amazing. And getting to see the kids in the program all get together and play and hang out in the school holidays is really, it's really a really special experience. And we feel very fortunate to have that in LWB.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely worth shouting about those guys. They do a great job. So thank you, everybody. Have we got any more questions? No. Well, that concludes our presentation for this evening. I'd like to thank Deb and Karina for their time, but also like to thank all of you guys for giving up your evenings to listen to us. And I hope you found this useful. I hope that helps answer some of your questions and giving you a bit of an insight into LWB and foster care. It'd be great if some of you guys decided to continue on this journey. And if you choose not to, that's also great. I just thank you for your time and wish you the rest really good for the rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.